everyone. I'm Claudia.
I'm Luciana.
And this is Where We Land, a podcast about immigrating and multicultural identity. Before we begin, don't forget that you can write to us at wherewelandpod@gmail.com with your questions or stories about immigrating to the U.S. Okay, so who are we talking to today?
Today, we get to speak with Carlos Meléndez, a film director from Mexico City. What a journey. It's been a roller coaster. I really enjoyed our combo, but he's directed short films, TV shows, movies. He has a YouTube channel where you can watch most of his stuff. So Carlos Meléndez YouTube channel. He also has a movie out on Netflix called My Encounter with Evil. So check it out. Just really inspiring. And Guillermo del Toro, comes up a lot. So
he vouches for this guy. So what can we say? He's solid in our book.
Yeah, let's get into it. We always start our episodes with kind of the same question. So could you tell us a little bit about where in the world does your journey start? Mexico. You were born there?
Yes, I was born in Mexico City, 1984.
Okay. And could you tell us a little bit about those early years in Mexico? Who were you living with? What part of Mexico? All of your initial, the beginning.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I come from a very unified family. So I have a brother, an older brother. I live always with my mom and my dad, who also just got, I think 50 years of being married. So
wow.
They are a pretty tight couple. Yes. It was pretty nice. It was really nice. It was still a pretty good childhood where I think we still had, this part where you will go out and hang with the neighbors, but at the same time, television was coming through. So it's the time where television from the US and Japan was starting coming and becoming a big thing. So you would get together to watch Japanese animation, watch MTV, or watch Hollywood movies. So that was also a big influence in my life. But you will do that going to your neighbor's house. So we will ride bikes and then go back to watch Godzilla, Los Simpsons, or Hollywood movies.
Yeah, and of course, you were interested in movies and television from a very young age. You wanted to study this in college, but your parents didn't really want you to, right? So you ended up hopping around different colleges around Mexico City. Tell me about that time in your life, because I imagine as a young person, you're going off to college. Everyone's like, yeah, this is what I want to be when I grow up. And you're like, I just want to make movies, but you're kind of forced to study other things. So tell me about that period. What were you thinking? What was it like?
Well, that was a funny story, because what happened basically was that, I got the idea of first I wanted to do cartoons. That was in my very, very early years, I wanted to make cartoons. I wanted to be an animator. Okay. But I wanted to be a Japanese animator. I wanted to make Japanese cartoons. So actually, when I was very young, my dad that worked at the pharmaceutical industry, they got together in this big company, and they had branches all around the world. And he met the guy that worked in the same company, but in the brand from Japan. And they became very close. And my dad told him, my son is obsessed with Japanese animation and Japanese culture. And the guy from Japan told him well, you should send him over to Japan. They are right now giving scholarships in the Japanese embassy in Mexico for young people to study Japanese. And not many people know about this. So I applied, and they gave me a scholarship when I was 12, 13 years old. And I went to Japan for 4 months to study Japanese. And
so cool.
Even when I was in Japan, the Japanese people were like, what the hell are you doing here? It's we're talking about late 80s, right now everyone goes to Japan. When I was there, they were like, no Mexican comes here. It's this makes no sense. And I had a big knowledge about Japanese culture. And basically, I started studying their Japanese, and I told them about my passion on Japanese animation. And they told me, well, it's your culture and ours don't match, so I don't think this is a good idea. So when I came back to Mexico, I was very disappointed and I was like crying myself out and I was like, oh no. And because they told me basically in Japan, like, you're not very good at drawing. So I was like, okay, if I'm not able to draw my stories, I'm going to film them. And I got a little camera that I got from my parents, and this you still recorded on VHS, and you connected this little toy camera to the VHS and you started recording from there, from the television. And I started to make my movies. And that's when I realized, so this is filmmaking. So what happened was that I was all that time talking to my parents about like, I want to make this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And they were like, no, you have to follow the path. You have to either study any other career that is going to help you build that you're going to be able to live from that income. So I went through a lot of universities. I was a very bad student too. So what happened was like, I first started studying communications, which was kind of like the closest thing. And what happened was that I got a scholarship, but I did not tell my parents about this. So every time that I had to go to make the payments, for pay for every month or bimester, I was able to take that money and save it to make my films. But then I was doing one film that went over budget. And I had to take the whole amount of money. And I did not pay for that month. So the school called my parents and told them, like, if Carlos doesn't pay, he's going to lose his scholarship. And they were like, what the hell you mean? He has a scholarship, and where's the money?
What scholarship? Yeah, we've been giving him the full tuition.
We're going to give him the full tuition. And they're like, where's the money? What have you been doing with all of this? And I showed him this really weird short film, sci-fi, black and white movie that I made that made no sense at all. And they were like, you are crazy. You have to take this idea out of your mind. This is not going to happen. You have to study. And I was like, but I want to make films. So they ended up kicking me out of that school. And my parents were like, okay, you know what? You're going to study business. And they got me into the hardest school of business in Mexico City. And I got there and I was very frustrated. And all the time during my career, I was just basically like watching movies and just like thinking about making movies. And what happened was that guys from MTV London came to Mexico and they wanted to meet young people to tell their stories about how it is to be brought up in Mexico City. And they were shooting this movie in Russia, Los Angeles, Mexico, and Africa. And basically when it just happened that I was having lunch and this person came and they were like, would you like to meet the director? And I was like, of course I would love to meet the director. I met with the director and I told him like all my life about growing up in Mexico City, how it was being a teenager over there. And after the interview, I told him like, if you make the movie, please allow me to work. I'll do it for free. I'll do anything you guys want, but let me just be on a set. And they were like, okay, we'll let you know. 6 months later, they called me and they're like, we're making the movie. Would you like to be involved? And I was like, of course I want to be involved. I left like, I didn't care about the university. I just dropped everything and I started working.
Yeah, you're like, goodbye exams. I'm not taking you. I'm going.
I don't care about this. I'm going to be working on this. And I was just like pulling cables, bringing lunch, like whatever they told me. And they
wait. What did your parents say?
I know. I'm thinking about your parents the whole time because it's like
they must have had a heart attack when you were like, I'm leaving. I'm going to make this movie.
Using your tuition to pay for your films is like, first of all, like also like they should have listened, but also like now you've left to work on a film set.
Oh,
what did they say?
This struggle, I had it until my 40s. So you'll hear a lot about that. Yes.
Like, okay, so your parents were quite stubborn.
They were like, okay, we'll do it, but you need to get these grades and we'll allow you to do. And so it's been always being a back and forth. So what happened was that I started working in Mexico first as a PA, as a production assistant. And then from there, the production company said, okay, you know what, Carlos? We like you. You're a good worker. You're very passionate. Why don't you come to Los Angeles to work with us on the movie? The only thing is that we cannot pay you, but if you get your parents to buy the tickets, we'll give you the hotel and the foods. So I went with my parents. I was like, please, please, please. This is my dream. Please. It's just a ticket to LA. Ta, ta, ta. And they were like, okay, we'll support you and we'll take this step with you. Go to LA and we'll see what comes from that. I went to Los Angeles. I started working on this movie. And then after we finished shooting in Los Angeles, they told me like, would you like to come to Africa and finish the movie? And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, we'll pay you the plane, the hotel and the food, but we cannot pay you. And I told my parents and we were like, you know what? Do whatever you want. Go for it. So I went to Kenya, to Africa to finish this movie. And when I came back from that trip, I sit with my parents and I told them like, there is no way, there is no human force that is going to take me out from giving my life to making films. And they were like, okay, you know what? We've been through so much that we're going to support you as much as we can. We have no idea what this means. We don't know how to do it, but we'll be here for you and we'll try to make it count.
And so is then when you decide to come to LA, is in that moment when you decide to move?
Okay, so this is what happened. From there, it became kind of like a weird story. So I was still in the other school where I was studying business. And what happened was that I applied to the film schools in Mexico and none of them accepted me. And I was just like, oh, damn. Okay. So
you're like, my parents are finally on board though.
And I'm like, my parents are on board. And now I cannot get to any university here.
So this is like the Japan rejecting your cartoons.
I know, yes.
Over again.
So what happened was I got this crazy idea, which was like, okay, maybe I don't need to study a career. Maybe I can just try to get into another films. So in that time, Guillermo del Toro was about to make Hellboy in Hollywood. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to contact Guillermo del Toro and see if I'm able to work on Hellboy. And what happened was that he had his official website and basically there had an email there. And I wrote to this email that they had there. And I was just like, well, I am working for this newspaper and I would like to see if you could give me Guillermo del Toro's contact because I would like to make an interview for him. And they gave me his email from that time. And I wrote to Guillermo del Toro.
Oh my goodness, the vetting process was weak.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. In that time it was very shy. So I wrote to Guillermo del Toro and he answered me. And that was for me just like a game changer. And what he told me was like, okay, Carlos, I cannot give you work in Los Angeles because it doesn't work like that. Like you need a working permit, you need a visa. Like it's a long process, but I wish you all the best on your filmmaker career. And just like, I know that our paths will cross somehow. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe Guillermo del Toro answered me. There's this means something. I got even more excited. So what happened was that I talked to my parents about this and my dad basically told me like, okay, you know what? This is been taking so long because now you're out of 2 universities. So time is running out. So you should apply to a school. Like basically the deal with my dad was you can study filmmaking if you study in a place where they teach you how to make a living out of it. So basically it was Hollywood. So I applied to many Hollywood universities. Some were like so expensive that we couldn't afford it. So I ended up applying to another university and here's another story because what happened was that I was falling so behind of university and I was just feeling that my time was running out because I was just like, oh my God, I should be like, my friends are always like, almost like in the midterms of their university and I'm not even started. Like, what am I going to do? That I applied to the master's degree on this university without having a bachelor's.
Carlos, man, you're such a little schemer. You just are. You're like,
I know.
You know, like he's like, I don't care what it takes. I'm getting to Hollywood.
Yeah. So basically, I told this university, like, no, I do have a bachelor's here. You can see my film. And I sent them the film that I did with the tuition from the other school that I had. And they saw that short film. And through that, they were like, okay, so you already know, you have an idea on how to shoot and how to film. And they accepted me.
Without the degree? Without
this is what happened. They thought I did have a degree. So what happened was that I came to LA and I came to Hollywood, and I had 1 year of the master degrees studying. And then after 1 year, they tell me like, Carlos, can you come to the office? We have some questions for you. And they were like, you do not have a bachelor degree. And I was like, well, no, I mean, I kind of told you about this. And they were like, you're in a master's degree. You cannot be having this education. No. And they were like, well, yeah, I mean, you saw my document.
I would be like, it's on you.
That's
you didn't check.
So what happened was that they wanted to sue me. And I told my parents like, oh, this is going on. And my parents got really mad. And they were like, no, this is your problem. You had those documents. We are going to sue you. And they were like, okay, you know what? Okay, hold on. This is what's going to happen. We cannot give Carlos the master degree on filmmaking, but we'll teach him everything he needs to know. The only thing is that we cannot give him a document saying that he has a master degree. And what we're going to do is that the rest of his education is for free. So my parents were like, hell yeah, you got it. You got a deal.
No diploma, but free education. But it's for
free tuition. It's okay. Got it. There you go.
You had spent some time in LA when you did this film,
right?
That you worked your way into. You went there. You went to Kenya, and then you have this time doing a master's degree without a degree, also in LA. So you're on your way. But I'm just wondering, it sounds like you're making great steps. You're moving forward. You're trying to get things done for yourself. But at the same time, it also sounds like really like chaotic and like you're running by the seat of your pants, And so I'm just wondering, what did it feel like? Did it feel for you like was it exciting? Was it scary? What was it like? Especially like the whole living in a new country thing.
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, it is very exciting. And I think it's something that I have been able to put together in my life of saying like, this is being a constant through my life. And in that time, I was very driven by my passion and by my love for films. So for basically it was like, no matter what, my love for filmmaking is so big that it's going to take me to wherever I belong. But at the same time, I was like, being hit by so chaotic decisions and also coming to a new place. Like for me, when they told me we're going to sue you in the US, I was freaked out. I was really freaked out. Like it was like a whole new world that I never knew, like how it works, a legal system that I don't know how it works, being foreigner and living by yourself. And here also, like, even though you're driven by your passion, is hitting reality about like, even if you come from I come from a good family that is established in Mexico. I mean, it's not a rich family, but we are in a midpoint family, And then suddenly you come to LA and you realize that you are lower class here, It's like, it doesn't match. Like the maths don't match. Like, for example, in Mexico City, I'm used to use public transportation. And then I came here and it took forever to use public transportation. And it was taking me 2 hours and a half to get to school. And I was just so exhausted. And I was like, I need a car. But my parents were like, well, we cannot afford a car for you in LA. So it was, it was just like, wow, okay. So how do I match this new reality and like my standards here? And I trying to get like stuff that in Mexico, it was easy and it was provided for, and here suddenly becomes very hard,
Plus the language, would you say tell us like a little bit, like, did you have like the language? Was that difficult? Was it like your English is good, but was it as robust back then?
No, it is very interesting because all the people that I meet when they move to the US, I think we all think we know how to speak English. And then you come here and you're like, oh, okay.
Like, what did you say?
Can you go slower? Can you
slower?
and I also realized also like I was like, I mean, of course in Mexico I took classes I in English, and always my family, I mean, all the content that I see in Mexico is in English, and my dad always like very strict on like teaching us English since very early ages. And I always thought like, no, I speak English. I go to the movies and I understand them. And then I come here and what happened was like, I'm starting to talk and they were like, sorry, what did you say? And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And I'm like, no, this is what I mean. And you know, so you start realizing like reality starts hitting you. And for me, those 4 years that I spent it here during that time, they were really tough. Like I ended up not liking LA at all. I was just like, I don't think I like this place. It's very tough. Everything is fast. People like also like the way we see life, the culture, like, I don't know. It was 4 tough years for me. Like, and I think they were like a big test on saying like, you want to make this and you want to make it this way. This is what it takes. And they were very tough. Yeah.
So once you finish, your studies, you decide to move back to Mexico City. So I'm wondering, you're saying you didn't like LA at that time. What went into that decision-making process? Because I'm sure there were a lot of things, the professional, the personal, emotional. So talk me through what were you thinking at the time?
I mean, it was a journey because during that time, okay, so here's another little anecdote. But what happened was that during that time that I was studying, there was a film festival here in Los Angeles. And Guillermo del Toro had just made Pan's Labyrinth. So they were saying like, okay, there's going to be a screening for Pan's Labyrinth and Guillermo del Toro is going to be here. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. I was just writing to him like 1 year ago. I need to see him. So I went to the film festival and I was the first one in the line. I was like 5 hours before the showtime, just like there standing. And I was like, no matter what, I got to talk to Guillermo del Toro. And they screened the film. He comes in, he presents the movie. And I thought there was going to be a Q&A. And I was like, great. At the Q&A, I'm going to like tell him like who I am. And that first screening, they said like, oh, we're sorry, but Guillermo del Toro had to leave. But there's going to be another screening tomorrow and you're going to be able to meet him. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So next day I buy my ticket. I stand there 5 hours before the show and they open the theater. He presents the movie. And since I already saw it, I jump out of my seat and I go, Guillermo, can I talk to you? And he says like, and this is like super fun. I just have like flashes of how it happened, but he told me like, but you're not going to see the movie. And I was like, I saw it yesterday. And he like, oh, then come with me. Join me. Let's go for something for lunch. So here's a crowd of people.
Also, Guillermo sounds like the nicest.
Guillermo,
I would faint. I would pass out.
Guillermo is being a light, and I think for every Latin America filmmaker that I know, Guillermo del Toro is being a light for the dreams. Like he is really a North Star of saying you can make it. And what happened was that he's showing Pan's Labyrinth, and here I am with Guillermo del Toro in the hallway of the movie theater. And I'm telling her like, Guillermo, I'm the guy that wrote you like 1 year ago. And I'm like, of course I know who you are, man. How you been? And we start talking. I'm like, I was just like, oh, I can't believe this. And he's telling me about like how he made Pan's Labyrinth, everything that took from him. And I told him like, Guillermo, I would love to be able to work for you. I know that you're doing Hellboy 2 now. I would love to learn from you. And he tells me like, Carlos, you just told me that you want to be a film director. Why would you like to work for me if you want to be a director? What you have to do is make your movies, make them happen, and then show them to me. Whatever it is. If that's in LA, perfect. If that's in Mexico, perfect. Whatever you have to tell them, go out and make your movies. And I was like, he told me like, don't work for anyone. Become a film director. So, and he told me like, my advice is go to Mexico, go back to Mexico where your roots are and make your movies there. And that will bring you here. Or if you have the possibility here, make them here, but do whatever it takes. It's not about where you are. It's about what you want to tell.
I love this. I love this so much, Carlos, because I feel like throughout your life, everyone is telling you no. And life is kind of telling you no. Japan tells you no. The university tells you no. Your parents. But you have one person, and it is the person.
Yes.
Yeah. And he is telling you go and go all in. And you could not hear it from someone better.
Yes. And I don't want to spoil what happened 20 years ago, 20 years later, because I don't want to spoil what happened 2 weeks ago. But we'll get to
What do now?
Are you working with him?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But it's been like a story of setups and payoffs of things coming through my life that are just life.
Okay.
I don't know, life.
I'm so excited. I want some popcorn.
He just teased the end of the podcast. He just teased it.
Exactly.
Like, we'll get there.
You are a storyteller.
Okay,
you know how to show a movie. Yeah.
So Guillermo del Toro tells you,
yes.
Go for it.
Go forth and make your movie. If it has to be in Mexico, it can be in Mexico.
And especially what happened is, like, he tells me, be a director. Don't work as an assistant. Don't work as any other position. And he told me, like, you're probably going to be here and you can work here. But if you work in Los Angeles as a PA, as an assistant director, that doesn't mean that they're going to give you the opportunity to become a film director. That's why you have to go where you are able to direct. That's why when he told me, like, that's why you can work as a PA in Hellboy 2 and you're going to be surrounded by the studio and all the glamour, but that is not going to make you a filmmaker. And what happened was that I came back to Mexico. And again, even though I had all my passion and all my drive and all the dreams that I had, reality hits back again. And so I started first, like, making short films, like however I could, bringing people in and out. And I started directing, like, no matter what, with whatever I had, I started just like making movies. And I started making short movies, and I started like just investing myself into like making short films. And the problem was that, like, every time I applied for some kind of like government support, I was not selected. So the people that I would have to go out to ask for money to make my movies were my parents. And they were like, can I borrow some money to make my movie? And they were like, okay. Can I borrow some money to make my other next short film? And they were like, okay, until it came to the point where they were like, how long is this going to last? It's like, we told you that you need to make this a sustainable career. And it's not happening. And you were in LA and you were in Hollywood and we sent you there and you're already in your mid-20s. And yes, you're making these short films and we know that you have these big dreams, but it's like, we cannot pay you a movie. It's like, we don't have that amount of money. We cannot give you the money to make a movie. We can help you to make short movies. And I did a lot of them. I did a lot of short films that started playing out in some festivals, but even though they were like playing at film festivals, nothing really else happened. So I was like, what's going on? And I worked with great actors, and I had Joaquin Cosio and I had Fernanda Castillo, and I had like great actors that they were like, and it going to Morelia. And then after that, my parents were very concerned because like, okay, so you're making all these little movies that we are paying for them. And where is the work? Where is when are you going to get paid for this? And I was like, I have no idea when that is going to happen. So I was pushing to make like my first movies and they fell down. I tried to make my first projects that they were very big and they fell down because I didn't have the money, or I didn't have the sustainability to make them happen, or I didn't got the support from like the INCINE, from government support. So it was just like, I did not got selected, and it was just like a huge crisis. And from there, I started working for a company here in Los Angeles that they gave me the opportunity to start making like very little small movies that they were like straight for television, but they were giving me the chance to start directing because they saw my short films and they were like, okay, we'll give you this little tiny movie. And suddenly I was working between Los Angeles and Mexico, and I was making these little movies between, I would come to LA, shoot something, go back to Mexico, but they were movies that they didn't felt like they were mine. So
right. It's like their movies.
Yeah.
They're paying you for it. You get to be behind the camera. But at least you're getting like income.
exactly.
Right.
At least I was getting income, and I was like, okay. But from that experience, I was able to do like what I call like my first movie, which is a movie called Hysteria. And when I made that movie, like I was able to also bring like investors from other places, like private investors. It was very independent movie. It went out in the festivals. It did great in festivals. It got selected. It played in the theaters. And I was just like, this is it. This is it. This is the one that is going to make me something. And nothing happens. And I was just like, oh God.
I mean, it's rough. It's a very competitive industry.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of what happened. I was just like, and my parents were like, I mean, they've been very supportive, but at the same time, they're very concerned about like, how are you going to make a living out of this? It's like, how does this work? And we would sit together and be like, okay, what if you try this? What if you try that? What if you try that? So after that movie, what happened was that I started getting jobs in publicity and television. And from that, I started like being able to work as director. And then, but that was a switch that came until I was around 30. And I was just like, okay, at least I'm getting paid now. And then suddenly from that, I started getting a lot of money. And I started getting paid very well. And I was like, okay, now I'm making a living out of this. Okay, so that makes sense. But it came to a point where I was just like, okay, but what's going on with the movies? Because movies is what I'm trying. So I was always in this back and forth about like trying to push what I really want to do with trying to push what I need to do. So it's been a back and forth all through my career. And 2023 was for me like a crisis year. So 2023, I was still in Mexico. And for that time, I was already like, I had tons of short films. I had already 3 feature films that played in cinemas, but nothing from that was still like putting me out there. In 2023, I got hired to be part of a TV show for Lionsgate, and it was going to be a big TV show. And 2 days before starting principal photography, they called me, and they hired me to be first writing 2 episodes. And then I wrote 4 episodes. And then they told me, no, we want you to be in the whole series to take care of this. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. This is going to be the one that is going to like break through. And 2 days before principal photography, they canceled it. And then I'm
on a roller coaster.
Yeah, I know.
And it was just like being like, I was working also for another slate of 5 movies. Before that, I wrote one, and the studio made 3 of them. And the one that I wrote, they were like, yours is not going through. And I'm like, okay. And then 2023, I was directing another TV show where I was like the main creator, and it was a show. It was a documentary series. And this is already done. This is shot. This is ready to show to the world. And it came between a big fight between the platform and the government. And they told me like, Carlos, your TV show cannot be shown. It's going to be like, we cannot show it anyway. It's going to be in a hard drive forever. It's like, it's not going out. So 2023, I was just like, I need something to happen. I need a change of life. I need something to happen. So that year, and I was like also with personal problems of myself, just like finding out my way through this. Basically, the sponsor, they told me like these guys that I worked with before, they told me like, why don't you try to move somewhere else? Come to Los Angeles and try it out here. And basically last year, the lawyer calls me and she's like, you got approved. And you have your visa right now.
Amazing.
You can move to Los Angeles. And I was just like, when I turn 40, I need to be in Hollywood. I need to get my visa before I turn 40. And that was 1 month before my birthday. And I went to the hills, to the Hollywood Hills. And next to the sign, I was like, this is a new chapter. And this is going to be a whole new episode on my life. Yes.
Well, I'm curious because that sounds so like hopeful,
right?
Like, so like energizing. So, but the last time you were in LA, you were like, I hate it here. So how do you feel about LA now, this time around?
It's crazy because I feel that it took like LA somehow was telling me this is where you have to be, but it took 20 years for me to realize it. And basically, like I've been here 1 year ago, making my way through Hollywood, meeting tons of people. And suddenly people that I work with 20 years ago or that I studied with 20 years ago started showing up. And they were like, Carlos, welcome.
wow.
Carlos. So one of my friends from university was like, you can stay in my house before until you get a place. Producers that I worked with before, like, oh, perfect. You're here. We'll welcome you here. And basically,
That's great.
1 week ago, Guillermo del Toro was showing Frankenstein at
Right.
he was showing Frankenstein, and I was like, I need to meet him again, and we need to see each other again after like 20 years ago. And I got to see him going back to Frankenstein, and we were able to like talk again after 20 years.
Oh, that's so nice.
I love that.
And also it was kind of like, I mean, of course he's being like bombarded by press and all of that, where he was just like, I told you we'll meet here. I told you. So it's just being like so encouraging, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I do think that like what he told you about like go and direct and just like don't do anything else. Like, yeah, like now maybe, you know, back in the day in LA, you were, you know, so young and you didn't have any experience. And now you've directed so much. You really feels like you know what you want to say. You're just waiting for an opportunity to do it.
Yes. And
it seems like LA is the place for it.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what, Luciana? I think I meet so many artists right now, and I meet so many people right now that are fighting to get their visas to be able to work here.
Oof.
And I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. And it's like, and I told them like, well, the reality of is like, it took me 20 years to be able to get that. And I think really this city tells you if it wants you or not. I think really it's like a digestive machine. And I told them my story about like, I didn't want it to be here. And I was trying, but at the same time I was not. And it was like, basically this place was the one that told me like, no, it's here. And it opened the doors to me.
And I think it's very true. You had like, there were lessons you needed to learn, like that really eager, like kind of little like scheming kid who was like, ooh, let me see what I can get away with. Like, yeah, you needed to go out. You needed to see the world because you were just
to get experience under your belt.
And then you needed also the world to like hit you in the face once you got out there to be like, oh, wait, okay, wait, hold on. Let me like, okay, maybe not so eager. Let's just rethink this.
Very important also to find the right reasons why you need to go out. That's for me. That's been like one of my lessons too, because I meet so many people, artists that are also here, and they ask me like, but how did you do it? How did you get your visa? All of this conversation. And I told them like, well, because I want to make films. It's not that I didn't came here to be out of Mexico. I love and I adore my country, but I felt I needed to move from there to be able to make movies, because there, the way I was, and it happens for other people there. And I saw a lot of friends that it was happening for them there, but it was not happening for me. And they were like, oh, and I meet a lot of filmmakers that are like, I want to win an Oscar. And I was like, dude, I don't think you should come to LA trying to win an Oscar. Like, you should try to make movies. You should try to make a career. You should try to express yourself and find where that fits in this. The rest is not up to you. So, and I wanted to stay in Mexico. I still always go back to Mexico. I have a close relationship to my country, and I want to shoot there. But my life, how it was working out, it was not the place for me to be there, even though I wanted to stay there. I felt like the way I'm working it out, and for other people does, but for me, it was telling me it's in Los Angeles, it's there, and I had to listen to that voice to be able to come here.
We have a question that we always do it towards the end, which I kind of think that I know, but we know the answer to. But what would you say are your main cultural identities at the moment? Do you feel American, Mexican, Latin American, Japanese, still gunning for the anime?
Exactly.
Like, what do you identify with?
I always identify with the freaks. I mean, I'm a weird person. I always say the weirder, the better. I like in Mexico, even like the people that opened its heart were weird people. Guillermo del Toro was a weird dude before he was Guillermo del Toro. He was like the weird guy buying weird movies in the middle of the market. And I relate, like, that's why I also feel like all this spirit of rebellion, punk weirdness, that's where I think I belong. I belong with people that we feel ourselves different, that we feel ourselves like we don't belong to any kind of like social status that tells you where you are. So we are just like the underdog, weird, bizarre guys.
Right.
Yeah. That's an answer we've never gotten before. So
I know, but I like it. I like it.
Because,
Carlos, you already explained geography means nothing to you. You just want to make the movies wherever you can.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so final question that we always end with is, we have this segment. It's called Speak My Language, where we ask our guest to teach us a word or phrase in your native language, Spanish, that this word or phrase either doesn't have a translation to English, doesn't exist in English, or maybe it does. You can translate it to English, but it's just not as good in English. You prefer it in Spanish. Do you have a favorite word or phrase in Spanish like that?
Okay, so I have a couple of words that I just love how they sound, that are not necessary. They are more like Nahuatl that I love, and I love how it sounds. But for me, even like also being so close to horror and Dia de los Muertos and all of these. I mean, Celpasuchitl is always a word that I just adore in this time of year. So
what is that?
Wait, what is it?
Celpasuchitl.
Okay.
So Celpasuchitl is the flower that we use at Dia de los Muertos to do our shrines. And it's such a beautiful flower that we put in the shrines for Dia de los Muertos. And that word is just like, for me, it's like such an important day, Dia de los Muertos, that is really related. And I have a lot of those.
So fun. Thank you so much, Carlos.
This was such a fun conversation. Oh my gosh,
I really do want to I'll ping you for an update.
Oh yes, please. No, please do. And also if you allow me to say it, but like a lot of my movies are available online. So if anyone want to see it, you can look me up on YouTube. I have my channel where most of my short films are. I have a show in Netflix called My Encounter with Evil that you can see, which is about exorcisms in Latin America. So it's My Encounter with Evil. So that's about exorcisms in Latin America. And you can see that out. And there's a couple of movies of my that I've directed here available in the US that you can see. México Bárbaro 2, which is an anthology movie of folklore horror movies made by the new generation of horror directors. So if you want to see some of my work, it's available online and it's available in the US. So
thank you so much, Carlos, for your time, for telling us your stories. And I can't wait to hear what other sneaky little things you get up to.
Yes.
So, how did this conversation land for you?
This was so fun. I've loved his journey. Like, wow. It's just been, a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Resilient. What a resilient, just like perseverance. No. Like literally, I'm just like, dude, you can't catch a break. And then he does. And I love where he's at right now. I feel like we're meeting him we've met him in a really interesting moment in his life. I really related to the part about like him not being ready for LA the first go around, having to leave, gaining that experience and coming back. Like,
I mean, he was so young. It was like 2 years after he graduated high school.
Yeah.
And he was so young.
And I do understand that some people come early, like in their early 20s and just stay the whole way through. And that's their journey and that works. But I do think in an industry as tough as that really like the sponsorship for those type of visas, you really do have to beef up a good portfolio to get sponsored. It's really hard. He was working to direct. So he kind of in my journey to directing films, it turns out I gained a lot of experience and I beefed up, created a great portfolio. And now it's really easy for me to get a sponsorship.
Yeah.
Once
again, it was the Guillermo del Toro advice of go out and direct and then you will see what comes after that.
Yeah.
Right. And he had this goal of like, no, I want to make a big project that breaks through. And that he was so focused on that and so like upset by not getting it, but inadvertently accumulating all that work got this other door
Exactly.
open. It wasn't the door he was fixating on getting open for himself, but a different door opened. You know? And so you never know what it's going to be the thing that gets you through a different door. But as long as you just keep working, it'll happen.
It'll happen. I think like experience, it is going to take you somewhere. This is going to sound a little woo-woo, but like the trusting the process, because in the moment it can feel like, what am I doing? But it is, if you're putting in the work, it will take you.
What I appreciate so much from his story is that as he was telling it, it sounded really difficult.
Yeah. He
like
did not
all the
sugarcoat.
setbacks he had and even like, cause you could tell that story, but like, oh yeah, after 2 years of college in Mexico, I went to LA, studied, went to Mexico, directed, got a ton of experience under my belt. And now I'm back in LA. And that sounds like such a always upward trajectory. But no, when you actually hear his story, it was a lot of struggling. He did not have it wasn't like LA was the best time in the world for him. In Mexico, even, he was like, I was in a crisis. I needed something to happen. And then this other thing. So like, it was a constant of like, I'm getting things done, but it's really, really hard. And then I'm getting this other thing done, and it's really, really hard.
I appreciated the detail, the nitty gritty of like, we sat down with my parents and we said like, how are we going to do this? Like, we can't pay for this. How are you going to like constant?
How much longer?
How much longer? When are you going to turn a profit? How are you going to like, which are real questions. Like, he didn't sugarcoat it, but, and which is important, but the perseverance was always there, but like always just, it was really hard. Through it being hard, I was still gonna push. I was still like, and he even said like, I wasn't personally okay at the end, right? In the 2023, like it was a hard year.
He was finally making the money, but he's like, but I still feel like the things I want to say aren't getting made, and I'm not making any traction. And
yeah, so I do think that is like just important to hear through the journey, and just not giving up through it all, because I guess like and I guess in hindsight, it's just, it can all make a lot more sense. But I do, as he was telling his story, was thinking about my own, and like when I've moved in and out and thinking they were all for that, you know, it was all kind of meant to be, even though in the moment I didn't know, just as long as you remind yourself what he said, like you remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like what is like, if you have a crystal clear goal of why you're doing something, then it will pan out.
Yeah. He was like, I just want to make movies, and I'm just going to figure out the way. And every time he had to figure something else out, it was either the funding. And then once he had the money, it was like, no, the kind of movies I want to make. No, how am I going to make those? Where can I make them? You know, it was always constantly some other hurdle. And what I also take away from his story is his like passion, his sneakiness, you know, because I feel like that spirit of that kid who was like, I got a 30% scholarship. I'm not going to tell my parents so that they give me the full tuition and I get to keep 30% so I can make my movies on the side. Like that little sneaky kid, that sneaky little 18-year-old.
Knowing that he told the university, hey, I'm not going to tell you.
I'm applying for a master's and I guess I have a degree. I don't know. You figure it out.
Look at this movie. And just like forget about the question. You know?
Like, I feel like
he knew what he was doing.
I feel like that's part of the skill set that he uses now. Obviously, it's a much more mature skill set now.
It's polished,
but like it's part of the whole, okay, I did this. They're not moving forward. They paid me to write the script, but they're not going to make the movie. So now what do I do? Like that's part of the skill set of figuring things out. How can I do it? Where can I pull from? Who can I rely on? Right?
Exactly.
So I love that he had that from such a young age. And he still has it today. He still has his little spirit. There's still like a wink in his eye, you know? Which I love. I love that he still has that.
I know. It was so fun. I so enjoyed this. I wish him the best. And I can't wait to watch one of his films. I haven't seen it.
I'm going to check out.
I mean, it's not really my genre,
one.
But I do love, what he's trying to do, incorporate that in Latin America. I think that's really cool. That wraps it up for today. You can support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Ciao, ciao.
Hasta la vista, babies. At Where We Land, we know that some immigrant experiences are harder than others, especially for those at the margins of our current legal system. So if you would like to help, we encourage you to support organizations that provide services for immigrants and champion their rights. You can find a list of organizations in the show notes.